Welcome to Your Mortgage Matters. I'm Beth McLeod, and WDIV and Click on Detroit have partnered up with Gold Star Mortgage. We've been sitting here for the last couple of weeks answering your questions, the viewers' questions from clickondetroit.com about your mortgages, your refinances, or quite possibly even a new mortgage. Well, today, Dan and Rick have sent another specialist in because, believe it or not, the amount of business that Gold Star does, they've got a very big office. If you've been watching in Ann Arbor is where they're centrally based, but their business is all over the country. Joining me today is Steve Mars, who's the Senior Loan Officer, a purchase specialist from Gold Star Mortgage.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about your background. Have you always been in finance?
Yes, I have, pretty much. I've originated loans for the last 10 years. Prior to that, I worked at a couple wholesale mortgage companies. Before that, I was in college.
So always being with the financial arm of it, you're kind of the face of Gold Star. You've been pretty successful over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I have. It's been a lot of fun.
See, and that's a good thing because sometimes mortgages, financing, not always a lot of
Not
fun.
always
Don't
fun,
take
sure.
that personally.
Right, no, I don't.
One reason why I ask is Dan and Rick, when they normally join us, we talk about that maybe Gold Star is not the first thing that comes to your mind when you're talking mortgages. Why is that?
You know, I think we're more of a personal company. You know, we meet with our clients face to face, and one thing we always stress is, you know, if you do business with us, you're going to get our cell phone. So you can call me on the nights and weekends. So we're a lot more personal and face to face.
They've really grown over the last couple of years as well, and in most of their business, word of mouth. Great website as well. All your questions that come in to clickondetroit.com, we've been taking a look, we've been answering them. Steve, I'm going to ask you right off the bat, what do you think is the most important piece of advice you can give someone who's looking for a new mortgage or a purchase?
You know, I think the most important thing is that the person sits down with a consultant, a loan officer, and really tries to figure out what their goals are. You know, when buying a home, there's so many different things, and it could be an emotional experience, and you want to treat it like a business decision first.
Which is hard to do because
it's really hard to do.
You fall in love with a home and you don't
Sure.
want to find out in the end you can't afford it.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of things that are involved with purchasing a home that you don't think of. You know, taxes and closing costs, and I think it's really important just to sit down with the loan officer and someone you trust and determine what that, you know, what's going to work for you.
What I like about sitting here talking with Steve is that he's very low-key. And you did say it can be emotional.
Sure.
And that's what you really want when you're going shopping for a mortgage. You want someone who, just like you said, is the business aspect.
Right.
So the person who's sitting watching there going, but I'm really waiting for rates to come down a little more. Do you think that's going to happen?
No, I don't. No, I don't at all. And the only time I guess you'll know that when rates come down is when they start to go up. So, and that's already happened for the last 90 days. Interest rates are significantly higher than they were 90 days ago.
Are you seeing more, now not you personally, but is Gold Star seeing more refinances, or are they seeing new mortgages?
New mortgages, you know, especially as we get through the winter months and go into spring. That's when the spring buying season starts. So absolutely new mortgages or purchase business.
And that's why we brought Steve in today to talk about this spring buying market. And coming up shortly, we'll be also talking to a realtor to answer some of your questions that way as well. But Steve, we have some of the questions that have come in online. Now, these have come to Rick and Dan, but I'm sure you can handle answering these. I recently moved to Michigan for work. I don't know any good bankers or realtors. So how do I go about finding someone? Well, first of all, if you're watching, you can just call Steve.
Certainly want to give us a call at 800-201-LOAN. But secondly, I think, you know, the next gentleman we're going to introduce, a realtor, you know, you want to talk to your realtor. Often your realtor is going to have someone that they've got experience with. But I think experience and reputation are the most important thing. And again, someone that you can meet face to face and call on a weekend if you need to.
Because when you're shopping for a home nowadays, you can do it 24/7. So
Right.
you guys like to be just as active, right?
Absolutely. And also, when people look at homes, a lot of times it's in the evening or on the weekend. They might have a question that they need answered now before they make an offer and take it to the next step.
Now, if you haven't looked for a home in a while, a pre-approval letter, that's kind of basic lingo for most people looking for a home. At least a while ago, that was it. You just need a pre-approval letter. But now there is something that someone has asked me about, which is better, or what is the difference between pre-approval letter and mortgage commitment? What does that mean?
Okay. Well, a pre-approval letter is basically where you provided some basic information, often just over the phone. And it's simply based on what you've told us, this is what we think we can do. And often that might be good enough to look at a couple homes here and there. But a commitment letter is actually when you've supplied us documentation, and then further, we've actually taken it and given it to an underwriter who makes the loan decision whether or not to approve the loan. So it's the next level. It's more of a commitment, and it's more firm than a pre-approval letter.
So the pre-approval letter can give you more of a guesstimate of what you can afford, maybe?
A guesstimate, yeah.
So not as important. You need that commitment.
You do need a commitment. And you know, I always tell people, you know, we pre-approve a range of property prices. For example, if you buy a house for $200,000, well, that's not actually what we do with a loan commitment. We actually base our loan decision on the monthly payment, not necessarily the purchase price. So there's a distinction.
Right, absolutely. Can you help just about everyone who comes to see you?
No, unfortunately we can't.
So
or we
there
can
is
help
a
them
line.
or we can help them make a decision maybe that they shouldn't purchase a home.
Which is good. It's nice to know, because that's how everyone gets in trouble. And you
get in trouble, and the last thing you want to do is pay for an appraisal and then have your loan declined.
Some other questions that I've come across online is, what is the conventional wisdom on how much you need to have for a down payment these days? Does it have to be 20%?
It doesn't have to be 20%. It's really dependent on the person's individual needs and their capacity. I mean, do they have 20%, first of all? Not everyone does. 5% down, that's still a very popular program. FHA with 3.5% down. You know, I always tell people that we need to sit down, look at a budget, and determine, you know, after you buy a home, how much money do you have left? We don't want to throw everything into the house.
No, you need to live. You need food.
You need to live, and you need to more like your surplus. So if something unfortunate happens in your life, you've got some money in the bank.
What about the letters that we see and the advertisements for zero down? Is that still possible?
You know, it is. There's really only 2 loans left, primarily that we do that are zero down. One is a VA loan, so unless you're a veteran, you're excluded from that. And the second is called the Rural Development Loan, which about 90% of Michigan's available for that product.
Really? How many loans did you used to have the zero down?
A whole lot.
That's how we got in trouble.
That's how we got in trouble, absolutely.
What about sometimes when you go to close a loan, someone says, well, my dad is going to kick in, you know, $10,000. Is that okay?
If it's a gift, it's okay, but you certainly don't want to wait till the very end to bring that up. Gifts are okay, but there are some guidelines that come along with gifts. So it's just important that you provide all the information and you're honest up front.
Happens a lot with first-time buyers. Like, what are some of those guidelines to make sure that you've got that money? Are they going to ask where you got it and why you have it?
You know, they will. They'll ask where it came from, and you'll provide documentation. And I'll give you an example. If you put 10% down, you have to have your own money into the transaction, or you can't even get a gift.
Oh, wow.
So there's different guidelines.
Okay.
Things have changed a lot.
So I'm going to put you on the hot seat just a little bit. What right now is the best loan you have going? Do you know off the top of your head?
The best loan that I have going, you know, probably FHA.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people don't have that 20%.
All right.
So FHA is a great loan. It's a little more flexible in terms of credit and some other things.
Buyer's market still?
Not for long. Not for long.
So you hear that? So now you need to get off your sofa or wherever you're watching this from and find out. Maybe now's the time you need to buy a home. Do you offer first-time home buyer like mortgages and discounts?
Absolutely. What I typically do with a first-time home buyer is I'll meet with them, sit down. It takes about an hour and a half. It's pure education, and at the end of it, we're going to give them a mortgage certificate and typically discount their processing fee up front.
That's awesome. Well, coming up, we're going to talk about the real estate market with a real estate expert who really had his best year in 2010. See, the market's not as bad as you think.
Not as bad, no.
So now might be the time. You can always call the 800 number, 800-201-LOAN, and there's always help available for you. And Steve, of course, would be glad to help you. But coming up, we'll take a look at the market, and we'll ask all your real estate questions in just a few minutes.
At Gold Star Financial, we're all about the numbers. With mortgage rates at 50-year lows, there's still time to make them work for you. At Gold Star, 95% of our clients refer us to family and friends. We shop 80 different banks and lenders to get you the lowest mortgage rate. We're home to the #1 and #2 loan officers in Michigan. We're homeowners here. We understand. We're ranked a top workplace in Michigan 2 years in a row. At Gold Star, we're all about the numbers, but you'll never be one of them. Gold Star Financial, setting the gold standard. Call 1-800-201-LOAN.
Okay, Rob, why should we read your new sports column on Click on Detroit?
Hey, if I have to tell you, maybe you shouldn't read it.
Now, Rob, you need to be nice.
Okay. Here's the deal. For years, I've been telling it like it is. You know that. I want my readers to feel like Sports Insider.
Rob?
Yeah?
You're kind of cute when you're angry.
Come on.
Read Rob Parker Confidential only on Click on Detroit. He'll make you feel like a sports insider.
Be nice. I am nice.
Don't get caught in a jam. Check out the clickondetroit.com's traffic page. You won't be late again. Spending a few seconds on the site could save you hours on the road. Before you walk out the door at home or at work, find out which road or highway has the worst backup. Check Local 4 live traffic at clickondetroit.com to see what to expect on your evening commute.
For live traffic, clickondetroit.com. Your morning news delivered to your home every day. It's morning home delivery. Fresh, fast, and free from Click on Detroit. Breaking stories to start your day. Weather, live traffic reports, and award-winning columnists. The daily information you're looking for. Direct from the Local 4 newsroom. Sign up now at Click on Detroit, where more people click than any other site in town.
Okay, so now do you believe me?
It's a lot of snow.
Really? So from now on you'll actually listen to me when I tell you to click on Just Weather.
This is pretty convincing.
Pretty convincing? Just Weather got it exactly right.
I know. I didn't guess up the snowblower.
And what's your plan now?
Hey, Bill, can I borrow your shovel?
Yeah, don't get me started. He's another genius who forgot to check Just Weather.
At Gold Star Financial, we're all about the numbers. With mortgage rates at 50-year lows, there's still time to make them work for you. At Gold Star, 95% of our clients refer us to family and friends. We shop 80 different banks and lenders to get you the lowest mortgage rate. We're home to the #1 and #2 loan officers in Michigan. We're homeowners here. We understand. At Gold Star Financial, customer service is job #1. We're all about the numbers, but you'll never be one of them. Gold Star Financial, setting the gold standard. Call 1-800-201-LOAN.
Welcome back to Your Mortgage Matters. Gold Star Mortgage has partnered up with Lunch Clicks at clickondetroit.com. We've been answering your questions the last couple of weeks regarding your mortgages and your refinances, whether you're a first-time homeowner or just out testing the waters a little bit. We've had some experts come in. We've had some loan officers come in. That's who we're sitting with right now. Steve Mars is the loan officer that we've been talking to already from Gold Star Mortgage. But joining us is Alex Milstein, who is a very successful realtor. And Alex, who do you work for?
I work with Edward Serval Realtors in Ann Arbor.
So now that is a very popular firm if you live west of the Detroit area. Why is that? How come you guys haven't merged over to the east side?
Well, Edward Serval Realtors started in Ann Arbor in 1982, and our business has primarily been Ann Arbor. We have grown a little bit to the west and a little bit to the south, but back in the day, various realtors used to belong to boards of realtors that used to be, there used to be the Metro Detroit Board of Realtors and the Ann Arbor Board of Realtors. So that kind of created a little border of, getting our listings from one MLS to the other MLS. So that's why we've kind of kept it separated. Although we have access to all that data now, right. It kind of left that divide back from, back in the 60s probably.
Now, like I was saying earlier, Alex had his best year last year, and you sold almost 150 properties. Your dollars that you sold was amazing. Tell us a little bit on what you see the market is doing right now and in the spring coming up.
Well, one of the best things that I've been, I'm a big stats person, and one of the things that I really have enjoyed seeing is that our market has started to stabilize.
Awesome.
We've truly stabilized in the last 17 months, as I've been tracking for years now, but in the last 17 months, the market has stabilized. There isn't as much supply in the market. One of the nice things about the first-time home buyer credit that happened is it really cleared out our inventory. Buyers got into the market, and whereas we had an oversupply for the longest time, now it seems to be in balance.
And that's good for all of us, whether you're looking for a mortgage or looking for your home. Is it still a buyer's market?
It is still a buyer's market. Although buyers are very surprised in this market today that there isn't as much out there. So you're still getting great prices, but you can't look at 100 homes anymore. You have 15 to look at, and if you need to make a decision, that's the 15 that you can.
That's
that
nice
you have to
that
decide
things
from.
are starting to. It's always a cycle. It always goes up and it always comes back down. So you need to buy now might be the good time because the rates are at a low, as we were just talking about with Steve. But let me ask the two of you together. Which comes first, the mortgage guy or the realtor? Who do you see first? If you're looking to buy a home, what really, truthfully, in good financial sound standing, shouldn't I go see a mortgage guy first, or should I come see you first?
It doesn't really matter.
Okay.
You have to start with one or the other. So either you have to go see Steve, or you have to come see me, and we'll always send you to one or the other. So you know, when buyers call me, you know, sometimes they already come to me pre-approved, and sometimes they don't. And I will meet with them no matter what, just because I want to find out, you know, I want to explain to them what the home buying process is like. But eventually, sooner rather than later, I will refer them over to a mortgage lender.
Do you normally give financial advice as well, or do you just always go, you know what, this is what you're approved for, go talk to Steve?
That's pretty much all I do. I really try to, you know, my job is to get them the house. Their financing comes with their mortgage lender.
So truthfully, the ladies are probably on this side, and the guys who pay the bills are probably on that side of the desk. It's not always the case, but you keep us out of trouble. You kind of have the fun part of the job.
Pretty much. I like to think so.
Okay. So when do you know, like, some of the questions that have come across online were not mortgage related, like this one. It says, what is the first question I should ask my realtor? So when I'm looking for a home, what is the first question?
Well, you want to find out as much as you can about the house and as much about the area that you're looking at. What I really encourage people is, you know, first ask yourself, actually, is this really the house I want to be in? Is this the area that I want to be in? And then, you know, the next couple questions for your realtor is, what can I get for my money here? You know, here are my needs. Mm-hmm. What can I find in here? You want to be realistic with your realtor.
Do you always go into homes with the idea that they might need some sprucing up or some fixing up, or even quite possibly some major renovations? Can you kind of help people navigate what's good and what isn't, knowing the market and knowing how much money they're going to get from the bank to help with a loan?
Sure. Well, the first thing is, you know, there's a lot of homes that need a lot of repair. And oftentimes people say, oh, I'm going to buy this house, it's going to be a great price, and I'm going to do all these repairs, but they don't know how to do them. And so that's the biggest concern, is a lot of people don't know how to do those repairs, and it's not just going to Home Depot and buying the supplies.
Really?
I wish it was that easy, but housework requires time, and what's your time worth to you? So that's the first part, as I always ask people. Yes, you may be able to get a better deal for this house, but a year later when you're done doing all this work and you've put all this time and you've bought all the supplies to do all this work to the house, were you better off buying something a little bit more expensive or not? And for every buyer it's different, just depending on their needs and are they able to do the work.
Right. How many homes do you normally sell or show on an average to someone before they buy?
Typically, I 15 to 20 houses. Now, I've had buyers who bought the first house they saw, and I've had buyers 4 years later, we've looked at 100 properties. But typically, I would say on average, I show 15 to 20 houses to a buyer. Can
people pretty much expect then, after they've seen 10, to have maybe a good idea on what they think they need or they want?
What I typically do with a lot of my buyers is the first tour is just an educational tour. I don't expect my buyers to buy the first time they go out there. So what happens is we look at anywhere between 8 to 12 houses, and during that time it's my time to explain, all right, here's what a bad roof looks like, here's how old a furnace, and here's how you can tell the age of the furnace. So that the buyer is more educated about the house and the home buying process. So that's the first tour is just to get your feet wet in the home buying process. What I also find is that in the first tour, they find out, all right, we're going to have to spend a little bit more money, or we're going to have to spend a little bit less money. You know, they find out what it's actually going to take for them to buy a house.
At this point, are they also sitting there talking to Steve and Gold Star Mortgage to find out their financing?
Before we actually even start looking at houses, all buyers, I highly recommend get pre-approved, just because it's so important. It's so important they get pre-approved so that they know what can they afford. You know, I really hate to see a buyer who, you know, thought they could afford $200,000 all of a sudden, and we've been looking at $200,000 houses, but all they can afford is really $150,000.
So you want to...
You know, I want them to be
time
realistic.
Invested, absolutely, because it's just kind of a waste of time if they're looking at houses they can't afford.
Right.
So when you guys get together, is it usually just the two of you, or is it you and Gold Star Mortgage? Do you do a lot of your financing through Gold Star? How did you guys come together? Because you're very successful, Gold Star's very successful, but how is the marriage between the two companies?
Well, Gold Star is one of the most reputable mortgage lenders in Southeast Michigan, actually now in the country. So it's, you know, I want to send my clients to a purchase specialist who's going to be able to, you know, fulfill their needs, and who I think is ultimately going to be able to, get to the closing table and provide my buyers with the adequate financing. And that's where Gold Star comes in. They are able to close deals much faster than most other lenders, anywhere pretty much, and they're able to work with buyers and explain the entire process. And I think Steve is very good at that.
Steve, how fast can you normally close once, assuming all the chips fall where they're supposed to and people can afford what they're looking at? How fast can you normally close?
From the minute we have a purchase agreement, the fastest legally you can close is 7 days, and we still can get that done.
A lot of stress on the home buyer at that point, or do you guys kind of take some of that
out? We certainly take as much out as possible, but that's a fast transaction, and Alex would probably back me up on this. That's probably a little bit too fast. You've got a home inspection involved. You're trying to digest that. You've got an appraisal. There's a lot going on in 7 days, but it still can be done, and that happens sometimes.
We've been seeing the 800 number at the bottom of the screen, 800-201-LOAN. Someone will help you answer your questions and get you to the right specialist, the right loan specialist, whether it's for a new loan and you're talking to Steve or someone else within the company. We're taking more questions here on clickondetroit.com. Coming back, we're going to talk about what the best piece of advice is for the first-time home buyer, whether you're looking just to buy the home or whether you need the financing. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about rates and maybe what loan might work best for you guys. We'll be back in a minute.
At Gold Star Financial, we're all about the numbers. With mortgage rates at 50-year lows, there's still time to make them work for you. At Gold Star, 95% of our clients refer us to family and friends. We shop 80 different banks and lenders to get you the lowest mortgage rate. We're home to the #1 and #2 loan officers in Michigan. We're homeowners here. We understand. We're here for you 24/7, just a phone call away at 1-800-201-LOAN. At Gold Star, we're all about the numbers, but you'll never be one of them. Gold Star Financial, setting the gold standard.
iShot News at clickondetroit.com. Share it with the world instantly at Detroit's #1 website. When severe weather strikes, send pictures and video direct from your cell phone or digital camera. Then watch the slideshows and videos at justweather.com. Wild weather, see it, shoot it, share it. iShot News at clickondetroit.com.
Let's take a closer look at justweather.com. This beautiful site is designed to help you and your family every day with live radar, colorful temperatures, and the exclusive Haircast. So simple to use. And look way up here. With the instant weather search, you can find the forecast for anywhere, from a trip to the mall to a trek up north. And it's all just a click away, at home, at work, and now wherever you go. As a meteorologist, I really trust this site. JustWeather.com. Explore it. You'll get it.
We want you to join in the conversation. That's why we've made it easier than ever to find Local 4 on Facebook and Twitter. Just look for this link on the homepage of clickondetroit.com.
At Gold Star Financial, we're all about the numbers. With mortgage rates at 50-year lows, there's still time to make them work for you. At Gold Star, 95% of our clients refer us to family and friends. We shop 80 different banks and lenders to get you the lowest mortgage rate. We're home to the #1 and #2 loan officers in Michigan. We're homeowners here. We understand. We're recognized as the fastest growing financial company in Michigan. At Gold Star, we're all about the numbers, but you'll never be one of them. Gold Star Financial, setting the gold standard. Call 1-800-201-LOAN.
Welcome back to Your Mortgage Matters, part of clickondetroit.com and Lunch Clicks. I'm sitting here talking about mortgages with Gold Star Mortgage representative Steve, who is basically deals with new purchase loans, new loans coming through, and realtor extraordinaire who really, Alex, really works Ann Arbor area and then kind of out of the Detroit market, but still has your hand. You still have your hands in the Detroit market. Definitely. We're sitting here talking about what the process is, and up through the Click on Detroit website came a couple questions, and people really wanted to know more about the process. So what comes first? We kind of decided the realtor comes first, and then what happens? I call you and I say, hey, Alex, I really like that house down the street. What happens?
Well, the first thing that I do is I set up an appointment to meet with the buyer and meet at my office just so I can go over the home buying process. And, I use a step-ladder system of explaining here's what it takes from today that we meet to the day of closing. Here's the entire process. And the first thing that I actually start with the process, I start by briefly explaining the mortgage process. Here's what you need to do in order to get pre-approved for a mortgage, because that's really what's going to set this. Obviously, if you can't get approved for a mortgage, you can't buy a house. So the first thing that I do is I recommend that they contact a mortgage lender, such as Steve.
So now, Steve, we talked about the pre-approval letter. Is that what you start off with?
That's definitely what we start off with. I think if they've spoken to Alex first before they've come to me, though, it's really helpful because they might have a property in mind that we can use as a sample. So we sit down, and it's a 45 minute to an hour and a half process where we go through as if they're actually buying that house. And we go through all of the numbers all the way down to the check that they're going to write at close. And I think it's really useful for when they go back to Alex, they can kind of change their parameters. Maybe they need to ask the seller for a credit, and they won't know that unless they've sat down with me to understand how much money they need at close. So I think the two go hand in hand, and I think it's great when they've spoken to a realtor and got educated about the market first.
So then they go see you, and you're kind of like the entrance into the bank. You're kind of laying down, this is what you can afford.
Right.
Because we don't want to get you in trouble.
Right.
And then after you send them off with at that point, is it the pre-approval letter or a commitment letter?
At that point, it's most likely a pre-approval letter.
Okay.
And then we follow up with a lot of documentation, the pay stubs, the bank statements. And we take it a step further, and we turn it into an underwriter for them to look at it to make sure that we're going to be okay when they're ready to make that offer.
What kind of time frame are we talking about when your information gets to the underwriter for a commitment letter?
A couple days at most.
So then at this point, have they come back to see Alex and say, hey, okay, we're waiting for a commitment letter, but basically here are my guidelines?
Correct. And usually they come back to me with a price. And during the first meeting, after we've talked a little bit about the mortgage process, I do a wish list with my clients. All right, what do you expect that you're going to find in your new house? What do you want in your new house? Where do you want it to be located? So I do a wish list with them. And this will guide me towards finding the right house for them. And so from that wish list, I always tell them, all right, I'm going to email you some properties. I'm going to pick out as many as you like, and then I get a list together for them of here's the 8 to 12 properties that we're going to go take a look at during the first tour to get their feet wet. And then we'll continue looking at properties until they find the one that meets their needs. And from that process, what will happen is eventually they're going to end up at a house that they really like and they want to make an offer. And the next step would be is I would run comparable sales.
Mm-hmm.
I want to find out, is this a good value? Are there, does this meet their parameters? Is this the right property for them? And, I advise them on how much to offer and what conditions should we put in the offer. And hopefully, we'll submit the offer.
Okay.
The offer will get accepted.
Of course it will.
It will. And after the offer is accepted, there's 2 things that happen next. The first thing is we start scheduling inspections. Obviously, we want to have the house inspected. We want to have a home inspection, a pest inspection, a radon test. We want to make sure that the property meets the needs of the buyers and the buyer doesn't have huge expenses. While we're doing that, while all that's happening, they've started now working with their mortgage lender to get the mortgage process going.
And this is where Gold Star comes in, and then does the process just continue from the underwriting step?
It really just continues. I mean, at that point, once they've made the offer, they're going to complete the formal paperwork that's involved, and then it's going to be submitted to the lender's underwriter, and the inspection's happening, and then this thing that happens after that is probably the appraisal. And if we've all done our job correctly, it's an easy street from there.
Definitely.
So the appraisal comes back, and Gold Star says, we're going to give you the mortgage,
Yep.
and you're going to put the deal together. What if things don't go that smoothly? What if the appraisal doesn't quite equal what the house is worth? Then what happens?
Well, there's a couple things that happen. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to review the appraisal heavily with our in-house chief appraiser, and we're going to make sure that the appraiser got it right, first of all. We're going to talk to the agent. Maybe there's some relevant data that wasn't included. So we're going to make sure that the data is accurate, that the value that they've given is portrayed correctly. And if it is, then we're going to turn it back over to Alex, and he's going to negotiate.
And you're going to make sure that deal closes then?
Correct. And there are several steps. We do run into appraisal problems every once in a while.
Right.
And there are several steps that we can take in order to close the deal. So we definitely take all those steps. And sometimes the buyer ends up paying the appraisal value of the house. So they're actually going to be paying less. So
that's nice.
That is nice.
Yeah.
So there are lots of ways to get around that obstacle.
What about the buyer who is now watching this going, hey, that's all great, but I've already bought a home. I kind of know how the process is, but I want to move up. What's best for them now? To move up? Can they sell their home, do you think? And, or should they just refinance and stay put?
Okay.
What's your advice nowadays? And I'll put that out for either one of you to answer.
In terms of whether or not they should refinance, it all comes down to how long they're going to own that home. And that can be a difficult question, so I try to get the person to really think about the future. You know, maybe they're going to have children, maybe some children are leaving the home, you know, major changes in their life. And then I always investigate a couple things. Number one, if you want to move up, are you comfortable keeping the current home you're in and making double payments, maybe trying to rent that? Or do you have to sell your home? And if they have to sell the home, then obviously they need to talk to Alex and find out if it's feasible, if they have enough equity, if they can even do that.
What ends up on your end of it?
Well, I often use the analogy because, you know, obviously values have fallen. You know, it's not a secret anymore that values have fallen. So I always use the analogy, you may lose your shirt on the sale of your house, but being that you're buying probably a higher price house, you're going to gain that shirt back, a sweater, a pair of pants, and nice shoes.
All right.
So that's the analogy I use, that you have to really look at the big picture, and you can't just look at, you know, I'm losing money on this house and that's it.
No, but you still need to keep them moving forward.
Correct.
So, and that's really where the financial part of it comes into play. You really have to sit down with someone who knows what's going on in the market and can answer your questions calmly, which is really nice. I'm nervous to sit here talking to you because if you've ever been through the process before, you really just want someone to hold your hand and answer your questions, and that's why we're here. So we talked about the move-up buyer. What about the buyer who knows that they're going to need some special financing to buy a home? Is that something that the realtor helps out with? Who decides that, oh, no, you got to go, you know, you don't qualify for this, you need to go a different route? Who decides that?
I definitely think the lender. So special financing, I think that, you know, that involves education. And it's probably very important that they sit down and spend an appropriate amount of time to make sure that they're looking at homes that they really can afford. You know, not all markets will give credits and pay for your closing costs. Not all segments of the market. And as we go more in towards equal supply, you're going to see sellers less willing to give the credits that they've done in the past.
When you talk about the seller credit, what technically is that? I don't know what that is.
It's basically the seller giving you, the buyer, money towards your closing cost.
Really? I like that.
But
does it happen a lot? Like, is that like they'll pay for their closing costs and stuff? That's a seller credit?
It is. It's very common. It's very common. But if you go back to 4 or 5 years ago when it was a seller's market, it wasn't common. It wasn't common at all.
Do you see that pretty much just going away as the market kind of levels out together? Do you think the sellers won't really have to give up and still be a little bit of a buyer's market?
I don't think it'll go away, but the credits will become less. And it's really important because if you have a seller credit, that credit has to be built into the purchase price, and it has to appraise for that. So it'll probably tighten up in the future. And the dollar amount will shrink. The person will need more money at close out of their own pocket.
What do you think the most common down payment is for a home on both sides of you? You know, do you try to get the person to put the most money down, or do you listen to the bank and say, you know, Steve says, oh, you know what, 10% is just fine?
I leave it up to their lender to talk about the financing. You know, what I'm seeing in the market right now for properties that I've listed and for buyers who are making offers, it's either on the low end or on the high end. So it's either 3.5% FHA financing or it's 20% down.
Oh. Yeah, I agree. Not a lot of 10% buyers.
Really? So everyone's just less than that? And
the FHA loan's a very popular loan right now. In the past, not so much, but it's approximately 50%.
Do you have to qualify for the FHA loan? Is that something that GoldStar comes out and says, well, you qualify for an FHA, so it's a good thing?
Yes, it is, yeah. FHA guidelines are a little bit more flexible than what we call conforming guidelines. It's a great product if you don't have the money to put down. Clearly, the larger down payment is better off in the long term, but it just depends on your individual needs.
Alex, what do you think the market's going to do coming up this year, 2011? You had a great 2010, which is probably hard for many people to believe because, you know, who really was buying and selling real estate? But GoldStar did a great year last year, but you really had an outstanding year. So what do you see for 2011?
I think we're going to be a very stable market in 2011. I think it's going to be, I don't see any drops in values. I think it's going to be very stable. And that's what's really going to take. It's going to take a couple years, but we're finally getting to that stability point. And as long as, you know, the buyers understand that and the sellers understand that, we're going to get into a much better market, and which will hopefully sooner rather than later, values will start coming up again.
Do you think it will happen sooner, that the values will come up?
As soon as, you know, there's a couple factors that play into that. One is, you know, the underwriting guidelines have to change a little bit, which they are. and there have to be more sellers who are willing to take a little bit of a loss in order to make the move up. So ultimately, it will change. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
So do you still think now is the time to buy and sell a home and to refinance?
I definitely think so. The interest rates are so low that it makes complete sense for someone to get into a 30-year mortgage and have great payments. You're going to be paying much less than what you're renting for. So if you're currently renting a property, this is a great time to be in the market.
And Steve, what do you think?
You know, I agree with Alex. And if you think of purchasing power, you know, approximately for every 1% increase in interest rate, you lose 12% of purchasing power. So if you're ready to buy a home but you're putting it off, that home's going to be more expensive as rates go up.
Well, thanks for both joining us. You've been watching Your Mortgage Matters, part of Lunch Clicks on clickondetroit.com. Gold Star Mortgage and WDIV, always helping with your finances. For more questions, you can call Gold Star Mortgage's 800 number, 800-201-LOAN. Thanks for watching today, and look for more Lunch Clicks coming up.